Okay, so welcome to the first lesson of Unit 4. I'm going to try and do a few of these online again. So if you're absent, you can see this, you can see the lesson. I'd like you to take a look at the Unit 4 outline and take care of the questions as we go in class, okay? So nobody do too much work. Your only homework is to watch this video as many times as you want, okay? So, just a few reminders. You can fast forward, you can rewind, you can pause and rewatch the whole video. Watch it as many times as you like, but make sure you watch the whole video, okay? Don't skip towards the very, very end of it and be like, yeah, I know this. Watch the whole video, okay? Some of this you might have seen before, some of it you might never have seen before, so it's pretty important, okay? So, welcome to Unit 4. In Unit 4 and Unit 5, we're going to be talking about linear and non-linear relations. So you can see the word line and linear. That's what the whole next two units are about. Drawing lines, okay? And so in order to understand a line, we have to understand what a point is, because a line is actually made up of points, so a whole series of points in a row. So our goals for today is to understand what a point is, graphing an ordered pair. That's the math term for a point. We're going to talk about interpreting it, so if I showed you one, would you be able to tell me its coordinates? And finally, a pretty sticky, difficult point is what domain and range are. So what do those two terms mean, and how do we figure them out? Anyway, okay, so we'll start off with a little bit of an introduction. Now, you might want to go off on a tangent and take a look at Wikipedia for this gentleman's name, Descartes. René Descartes was a very, very interesting person who lived during the Renaissance in France. He contributed lots of really important things to the study of mathematics and the study of philosophy. You might want to take a look at his Wikipedia page or Google his name and take a look at some of the interesting things that he said and done and contributed. Really important figure in human history, so pretty interesting. Not just for his facial hair and his hairdo. Okay. René Descartes came up with this system of organizing information, organizing two pieces of information to be specific. Now, in math terms, we call them variables, x and y, but they could represent other things, right? That's why they're variables. So basically, his method of organizing this information was kind of like by taking two number lines and putting them together. So you can see here you have an x-axis that goes horizontally. It's basically, it functions like a number line. All of these values here are negative, and all of these values here are positive. He also has a y value that functions just like a number line, or more like a thermometer, okay? So all of the negative y values hang out down here, and all of the positive y values hang out around there. 0 is right at the crosshairs in the middle, okay? So 0, 0 is right at the middle. So y is always vertical, x is always horizontal. That's the first sort of a thing that we need to start thinking about. Now, if I wanted to graph the point that's sort of listed there, 2 and -3, we basically just use both of these number lines to situate the points, okay? So I'm just going to sort of take a look, you took 0 here and you counted to the right 2, you get 1, 2. You get +2 on the x-axis right there, okay? And if you get +2 on the x-axis, that's good, because we know that this coordinate hangs out somewhere on +2 for the x-axis. Now, it could hang out anywhere up and down that line, right? So we don't know exactly where it is until we take into account the y value. So the y value is -3. It hangs out down here, right? 3 units down from 0, what we call the origin. So again, it hangs out somewhere on this line. Well, if you think about it, somewhere on that line, somewhere on this line, well, there's one point. There's only one unique point that has that y value and that x value in common. It's that point there. Okay, so again, we're going to need to put on sort of these math goggles where we're looking at this. We're saying, okay, well, that point there has a y value of -3 and an x value of 2. Mathematically, how we communicate that point to anyone, whether you're living in China or England or South America, that point is 2, -3 in brackets, okay? So once we put those in brackets, we know that those are the coordinates of that point. The same goes in the opposite. So we take care of how to graph an ordered pair, but now how would we interpret an ordered pair? So if I just picked a random point, somewhere on my graph, like say this one right here, you'd have to be able to tell me the coordinates of that graph. So that's the second objective or goal for tonight. Basically, that point, we would just count over. Okay, well, what's its x value? Well, its x value is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 into the negative, right? So -5. Its x value is -5, right? Its y value is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, +5. So its y value is hanging out up there, and it's +5. So basically, we've organized those pieces of information into an ordered pair that way, okay? -5, 5. And again, that's the only point that has those coordinates. There's no other point. Now there's 5 comma negative 5, it's somewhere else. There's 5 comma positive 5, and that's somewhere else too. Okay, so that helps us organize our information. A few last minute definitions and things like that you might want to know. This point right here, okay, that point is known as the origin. The origin is basically the point where 0, 0 is. Okay, we call it the origin because that's just basically the center of everything, right? And that's about it. So just remember that y is vertical and x is horizontal, and you'll be fine. So now we've taken care of how to interpret ordered pairs as well, I hope. Okay, so the next and last concept is a bit of a sticky concept. Just move this out of the way. Graphing the following. So, I'm going to do this really, really quickly and talking as I go. 2 comma 3 is 2 positive for x and positive 3 for y. So it's that point there. Negative 1, positive 5 is negative 1 and for x and positive 5 for y. So that's it right there. 4, positive 4 for x and negative 2 for y. That's right there. And 3, negative 3. Well, that's positive 3 for x and negative 3 for y. And positive 2 and positive 5. That's hanging out up over here. Okay? So I've graphed all of my points here. Let me just clean it up a little bit. So I've graphed all 5 of my points here on my graph, and that's where they exist. Great. I could give them names. Usually points are labeled with capital letters to represent where they are. I just chose to be lazy, and I didn't do that here. Okay, so what the domain is, and you can see by my slide here, it says a list of all of the x values. Well, we can pretty much clearly just take a look straight up and see these are all of the x values, right? So just let's put them in a list. Let's write them down, right? Okay, so again, you've got 2, you've got negative 1, you've got 4, you've got 3, and you've got 2, okay? But you'll notice I made this point right below. Put them in order and don't repeat the x values, just to be clear. So we're going to write D for domain. We're going to write equals for the word is. So the domain is negative 1, comma, 2, comma, 3, comma, 4. You'll notice again that I did not repeat those 2 2's because this is just a list. I wouldn't say that I've got 2 and I've got 2. I would just say that I've got 2. Okay? So those are all the possible x values. Now, you can pause my video and think about this before I give you the answer, or you can just keep going and take a look at this. These are all of the y values, so if I wanted to list all the y values, I'd have 3, comma 5, comma negative 2, comma 3, comma 5, and you can also see pretty clearly, right, that there's some repeats going on in here. There's a 5 and there's a 5, okay? Don't have to list them twice, and I'm going to put them in order. I'm going to write an R this time because I'm talking about the range, and I'm going to put them in order. So negative 3 is the smallest, then negative 2, then positive 3, and then positive 5. And that, my friends, is domain and range for now, okay? Because we're just talking about points. When we start talking about lines, we're going to start talking about groups of things, okay? So for now, it's just a list of numbers, and that's it, that's all. So we've taken care of the whole note. You could take a look at the blank note if you know you're going to be absent for an art or geography trip tomorrow. But basically, that's the note. So come on into class tomorrow ready to complete a similar note to this and some questions about it. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.